Good afternoon and Happy New Year. I think those words sound a bit hollow, don't they? This is a year that none of us really wanted to go into 21, having got through 2020. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, but it is very challenging for all of us. We're in probably the worst weeks of the pandemic. I think if you go back to April, there was 18,000 people with coronavirus in hospital. There's now over 30,000. So it's a huge amount of pressure on the NHS, our doctors, our nurses and all our health staff. And we must support the NHS by doing everything that we can, and we need to take that responsibility. So today I will be putting the questions and concerns to the Chief Constable, Andy Marsh. Thank you for joining me. And these contacts have been, these questions have been raised by a number of you, either coming into my office or through the social media. So before we start, Andy, is there anything that you'd like to say?
Well, just to pick up where you started, Sue, the shocking figures of people contracting illness, falling sick, going into hospital and tragically dying have shocked us all. We're very close by the figures of recent days of being one person in the country dying per minute of COVID, which is a pretty chilling thought. So when we listen to colleagues in the NHS, and we work very closely in policing with the NHS, colleagues are saying that they would appeal to all of us to do what we can to prevent the spread of COVID, and you know, let's hope, and let's hope it's in our hands, we can make the current peak the last one. That's the idea, isn't it? So the message, the big message, is actually quite simple, is stay at home unless there's an exempted reason to leave. Exemption might be exercise, work, or care for a vulnerable person. The complexity and the nuance comes around the fact that the law has been changed 65 times. Now, we've given a very clear message to police officers, all of which in Avon and Somerset have got discretion. We want them to use common sense and sound judgment and act with necessity and proportionality, conducting enforcement where they need to do the enforcement in order to reassure the masses, because we've got 1.7 million people live in this force area, that actually the masses, that most people are complying, and for those that actually are deliberately in a wanton way, a reckless way, disregarding, should experience some enforcement. So that's the idea that we're working to. So
thank you. And of course we've got to be careful that we don't dwell on the very small number of people who are breaking the rules and the guidance, because the vast majority are doing a fantastic job. You know, I was shopping over the weekend, and there was everyone with masks. There were people being really having, you know, socially distant, and the vast majority. I know that the good news doesn't sell the stories in the media, but it is, you know, there are numerous people who have changed their behaviour and are, you know, following the guidelines.
So I think there are many people making sacrifices, whether that's a restriction on funerals and restrictions around weddings and staying at home, not seeing people we'd like to. Most people are, but I think most people can now say that this pandemic has touched their lives in some way. Yeah. I checked the figures just before we came into the meeting. 82 colleagues in Avon and Somerset are currently sick with COVID, and we've had colleagues been in hospital sick with COVID. 47 have got suspected COVID. So out of a workforce our side, 127, that's a lot of people, and so and everyone will share their stories from their families and friends. But looking at the positive side of the number of people getting vaccinated, there are vaccination centres springing up across the force area. And I had a text just before I came here. My mum says she got vaccination on Friday. So whilst we all know people that are ill, very soon we're all going to know people that are turning up to get a spike in the arm.
Yeah, thank you. So let's just start off about the unlicensed music events. So we know that we have over 80,000 people who have died from this awful virus, and yet there's still a small minority who continue to ignore the rules, who don't believe that this has anything to do with them. And I was delighted that it was given national recognition at the Home Secretary's briefing yesterday about the preventive work that you've done, and you've stopped an illegal rave. So do you want to tell us a bit more about the enormous amount of work that went into that?
So the idea is to intervene early and prevent the harm, the risk of spread. That's what we're trying to do. So at the weekend, in the days leading up to last weekend, we were monitoring social media accounts talking about a rave. We took preemptive action, actually. We arrested someone that we felt was the organiser beforehand. And then we moved around 3 locations because the postcode kept varying. And we issued 38 tickets and turned many people, including minors, away. And we hope that we stop the spread of COVID in relation to that. And we hope that every one of those people coming could have taken COVID to a vulnerable person who could have died. So we hope that helped, and it was good to see it recognised. Looking beyond that, Sue, we'll remember the Yate rave, which is a very big rave where we made arrests. Since I last spoke to you, we've issued 20 more fixed penalty notices, and I dare say there's more to come. We've got great pictures of people that breached the coronavirus regulations there. And then looking right back to last summer, remember the rave that took place near Bath, disrupted people right across the north of even Somerset Constabulary policing area. We've currently interviewed 13 people, and a case file will be going to the Crown Prosecution Service. So it's really important. Our strategy is we will intervene early and stop these events. And I'm appealing to the public, if you see a gathering or you hear some intelligence, please tell us. We'd like to know about it. But if it happens, then we will act where it's safe to stop it and arrest, enforce. Where it's out of control and we can't do that, the long arm of the law will catch up with these people. And that's what's happening with all of these situations.
Yeah, really a good story. So let's just talk about fines and enforcement. What's the latest update on the number of fines that the officers have issued to local people for not following the rules?
So we've had since the rules changed, the law changed most recently, we've had another spike in reporting. So in the last week we've had 1,500 reports. We're attending 52%. So if people are concerned, they should ring us up if we can attend. And we are currently putting on a 7-day operation called Operation Hydrogen with additional officers on duty. Let's emphasise they're on cancelled rest days or working overtime, and we're tiring them out, and we've heard that many are sick. And actually we've currently issued, again I just checked before I came into this session, 842 tickets we've issued. 120 of them are since the last lockdown started. So more enforcement where there are flagrant breaches.
Thank you. So let's move on to travel. We have had a lot of questions about this, and we've seen it in the media about essential travel and travelling for exercise. So Andy, what sort of clarity can you help people about how far they can travel from home?
This has been well exercised in the media, and the expression and the words around travel are guidance. And the guidance is that you should stay local. So that's not enshrined in law. There's no explicit limit about how far you are permitted to travel, which means that we have to use our common sense, our judgment and our discretion to interpret it. And that's what the police officers are doing. The word reasonable exists in many forms of legislation. Officers are well versed with interpreting reasonable grounds to suspect. It's a word that crops up a lot. So any travel, my suggestion is stay local, unless you've got a very good reason. And I've already said the reasons are exercise, care of a vulnerable person, or work. It has to be reasonable. And again, I would plead to people, think about, as most people are actually, how can I comply with what's reasonable, as opposed to how might I wriggle through this and do something which I know I really shouldn't, but I'd like to.
And that's the whole point, isn't it? Because we're trying to keep people safe. And every time that you go out and you do something that's non-essential or one of those reasons, and you keep trying to push the boundaries, actually, you could be putting yourself at risk, but you could be putting others at risk. And not only those who are suffering from COVID, of course. Every time we fill that NHS bed with someone from COVID, we're stopping someone who may be suffering from cancer from getting effective treatment. Thank you very much. And in fact, I think Assistant Chief Constable Steve Cullen put it very well this morning, was when he said we've got to go to our nearest park, not our nicest park. And I think that's right. So let's just talk about the pressure that the NHS is facing with cases at an all-time high. How is Avon and Somerset Police supporting the health service during this crisis?
Well, we are a leading member of something called the Local Resilience Forum. In fact, one of our Assistant Chief Constables, ACC Nicky Watson, chairs that Local Resilience Forum. They're meeting incredibly frequently. This is a major incident. It has been for many months. We now know that. So this is a whole partnership effort. Two direct ways in which we're helping, apart from a planning and logistical way, is that I've offered, in fact, we've offered, so jointly with the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office, that all of our buildings, our skilled and dedicated people are at the disposal of the vaccination centres. So if we can help in any way, we've got medics, we've got buildings, we're ready to do that. We will do that, and it may be that we're required to help in the coming months. We've recently received a request from the ambulance service, who are under immense pressure, as are all the health services, to be fair, to help them provide drivers, police-trained drivers to drive ambulances. So we're working through that request, and I know that a number of other police forces are helping too.
Thank you. And before we finish, Andy, is there anything that you want to say to those who don't think that the virus affects them and the regulations have got nothing to do with them, who are still going to these music raves and large gatherings?
I think it is important to recognise this is difficult. It's unprecedented for all of us, and there will be groups of society, for whatever reason, might feel it doesn't apply to them, it's not their problem. But actually what I think has been incredibly enlightening has been the many moving documentary pieces, short pieces from within accident and emergency wards, where we've seen the real trauma, the tragedy of lives lost too soon. And many colleagues I've spoken to have been dreadfully ill. This has had a massive impact on their lives, and some of the health implications, even for younger working people, will remain with them for the rest of their lives. So especially as we see light at the end of the tunnel, and this vaccination programme is really gathering pace, I think it is just a question of knuckling down for these last few weeks, couple of months, and we hope we'll be moving to the other side of it.
Thank you. So I hope you found that useful. There are many questions, but if you have more questions, please send them in to us. Last year was exceptionally hard for all of us. We had to change our behaviours, we had to miss out on birthdays, on weddings, and so many ways that we normally would celebrate together. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. My mum too also had her vaccination, so of which I'm delighted. And we are looking towards the end, but we've got a couple of weeks now where it is really tough, and we've just got to stick at it. We know what we've got to do, and I would urge you to know that there are many people out there who want to support you. The Chief Constable, his police officers, PCSOs and staff, we're all there to try to keep us all safe. So until the next time, stay safe.